Hello, governors. Welcome back to Power Squared. We're hot off the press following Microsoft Ignite, and we've got some great announcements in the governance world that we're looking forward to bringing you. Some things that we think are really exciting, and we want to discuss them with you. Charles, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Josh. And hi, everyone. I'm always so excited when we have these conferences that Microsoft do, and I'm just so curious as to what's going to come up. And there was some really cool things from a governance perspective. So what we have on the screen at the moment is this, I suppose it's kind of like a new concept from Microsoft, which is this 10 agents for 10,000 users and 10,000 agents for 10 users. So it's this 10,000 for 10 style of thing. But what does that actually mean? It's basically a concept of, if we think about in Power Platform, where you've got your really simple apps and automations that you create in the default environment, that's your productivity environment, right? It's similar to that concept of you're building these really simple, small things that are almost like throwaway things. That's your 10,000 your 10,000 agents for your 10 users. So you have your users creating tons of agents that do small, useful things for them. So that's your one on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is your 10 agents for 10,000 users. These are your 10 agents that do mission-critical things, really important. This is your Copilot Studio side. So yeah, that's the general concept. So should we dig into it a bit?
I think so. Yeah, I really like the idea of this actually. It brings up that concept of, fail fast again, and that disposable agent concept. I think it's quite funny in a way, they just throw away, right? You do little tasks, but once you're done with them. It's, yeah, really cool. Let's dive into it a bit more.
Yeah, so let's think about kind of an environment perspective. Like, where do these things get stored, and like, how do we manage that side of things? How are we actually going to govern this? If we've got 10,000 agents, what does that look like? So the first concept with this is around this kind of three-tiered layering of environments or areas. They call them zones. It's that kind of thing. You've got these different zones. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a Power Platform environment. So the first one is the safe one. And this is where you'd have your Copilot Lite agents. These are your agents that are talking to SharePoint, or they're talking to a website, and they're just extracting data from that. So they're really quick to get up and running. You just give them a prompt. They don't do anything particularly clever, I suppose, although the results can be quite magical sometimes. One of the ones I created for myself was I fed it my website. And then if I ever need to ask any questions about content on my website, there's an agent for it, and it's within my licensing for that. So it's just amazing from that perspective. So those are the kinds of agents you can spin up tons of them really quickly, and they're very useful, and there's very little risk with them. So on to the next tier. So this is the collaborative side of things. So let's say that we've built our Copilot Lite agent, but we want to add a little bit more to it. Maybe we want to share it with a few people in our team. That's where we would go into this supported element. So this might be a shared environment in Power Platform where we've got a Copilot Studio agent. Maybe it has a few actions and it's shared with a few people, but we're not looking at something that's at that enterprise level. We're not looking at something that's mission critical with extremely sensitive data. We're in that middle ground at the moment with this. So as you can imagine, you start off with that personal and team productivity mode. That's where the majority of your agents sit. You get to supported, that number decreases. And then you get to the final one, the IT managed, and then that's a very small number, because these are potentially large agents that do very complex things. Maybe they're contacting multiple different systems with complicated integrations, lots going on. That's your enterprise level. And that's where you would expect your pro development side to sit.
It's really cool, and I like how that infographic explains that, and it ties in really nicely with that, 10 for 10,000 and that 10,000 for 10 concept there, as you kind of work your way up that complexity scale. You can see the personal and team productivity mode. That's loads and loads and loads of agents for one person, and for the maker, versus that high level, high technical complexity and high criticality, mission critical agents. That's a kind of more smaller number of agents with a broader scale, and probably needs a lot more governance around it, a lot more complexity involved. So it's really a really good kind of way to visualize that, isn't it? And I like the similarities of this. It feels to me like a bit more of a maturity of that old t-shirt sizing kind of example we typically use in Power Platform to size a solution. It feels a bit more of a modern approach to that, where you've got that kind of almost gray area in the middle where it's maybe not personal and team productivity, but it's not certainly not enterprise. So I really like this.
Yeah, it's really similar to everything that we've thought about and talked about previously with Power Platform apps and automations, our solutions that we've worked with before. It's basically the same concept, isn't it? Now we're just looking at agents. But one of the things that has changed is that what we're looking at now is much more communication needed between different parts of Microsoft. So your Power Platform team are absolutely going to have to collaborate with your Microsoft 365 team, if they are separate teams, of course, because we're looking at these Copilot Lite agents as not being stored in Power Platform. They won't exist in your Power Platform environments, whereas Copilot Studio does exist in your Power Platform environments. So you've got agents that are stored in different areas. And we haven't even mentioned the fact that there are potentially going to be agents that aren't even within the Microsoft ecosystem. They might not be in your tenant, but you might be consuming them from within your tenant. And that's where Agent 365 gets involved, doesn't it? So, Agent 365, do you want to just give a kind of summary of that, Josh?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that come out of Ignite was this Agent 365 unified kind of portal for agent management and governance. Feels like a really good step forward in the right direction in terms of governance for all this stuff, because it not only focuses on the one area, it allows that kind of blend, as we see this kind of blending of M365 Power Platform and some Azure stuff as well come into one. It allows you to see all of that holistically and see and make the necessary kind of governance decisions on these agents. It's really nice. And I think it's something we should talk about in a future episode. I'm really keen to get under the hood with this and see what it can do for governance. It feels like that missing piece of the puzzle in terms of governance for all of this stuff that we've been needing for a while. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and there are, of course, loads of questions around these things like how often are the agents being used? What kind of information do they have access to? How are they talking to the users? Are they succeeding in what they're supposed to do, or are they failing? All of these kinds of things you need information on. And it's agents across multiple areas. And like you mentioned Azure, I forgot to even mention Azure, but of course you've got what was Azure AI Foundry now is Microsoft Foundry. So you'll have your Foundry agents that again will be surfaced within Agent 365. So you're talking about so many different areas that all come together in one place. And that does necessitate communication between the different departments. Again, I'll say if you have the different departments, but most likely you will have different people managing the different areas because there's just so much stuff you need to know about for it.
I think that's a really nice thing, isn't it? Is that all this stuff feels like it works better together. It's all very complementary, not being siloed in Power Platform or M365 as much anymore. It's quite a nice thing. I know we've always had maybe like the SharePoint concept and stuff, but this feels quite nice. I'm looking forward to that, a bigger blend of technology and being a bit more across some of that. It's an exciting time.
It's really exciting, yeah. And so if we think about just Copilot Studio for now, because of course our focus the majority of the time is on Power Platform, we've got loads of cool features actually that can help us with managing Copilot Studio agents in Power Platform. And what we have is this new managed platform, which is growing continuously, and we're getting more and more things in it. And there wasn't so much of an announcement on new features necessarily at Ignite. There were smaller features, but it was really more about portraying the right image about this managed platform. Like, how can it help you as a whole? So you have your managed governance, where we now have more visibility because we've got this new inventory in Power Platform, which we are going to demonstrate in a future video. You've got managed operations, so there's more things happening with application lifecycle management. Like recently, we got Power Platform pipelines that can help us with that. We want as many things as possible to be solution aware so that we can move them through those pipelines. Managed transformation, where we've got more insights into the value, which we haven't got much on that yet. So we had with Power Automate, we had the option to record how much value we're getting from each flow individually, which is quite nice, but it's really not enough for us. What we really want to know is how much do you get from an entire process? Like, how much value are you getting from this? So with an agent, you're then looking at, well, how much did it cost me before I had the agent? How much is it costing me after I have the agent? We yet to see that side of things truly come through. The billing and cost management is a big thing. So we're seeing licensing changes potentially in the future. One of the things we've seen is with AI Builder that we've talked about before, that AI Builder credits that were previously seeded are no longer seeded, and we're no longer going to have them from November of 2026. We're going to have Copilot credits. And if we're paying for Copilot credits for AI Builder, then if we have any left over, we can use them in Copilot Studios. It starts to get really interesting. And with all of the app stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute, that potentially has an implication with licensing as well. I'm very curious to see where Microsoft decide to change the licensing. But anyway, back to the managed platform. So we also have managed security, and there have been loads of advancements within security and Power Platform. We're getting more and more insights into what's happening with the security in the platform. And it's especially important when it comes to agents. Are people trying to jailbreak agents? Are agents accidentally leaking data? And from that side, we've got a lot of management within Power Platform, but it again goes back into things like Purview and sensitivity labels and things like that. They all come into it when you've got your Copilot Studio agent that's talking to Microsoft Graph or it's talking to SharePoint. So yeah, it's a really interesting place. And there's just been so much growth. And I think at Ignite, Microsoft are really trying to show like, this is what it looks like as a whole.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see this get broken down a little bit more into those kind of, this high level stuff's fantastic and it gets you really excited. But you want to see the devil in the detail, don't you? You want to see kind of what does that mean? What does the quality checker and test automation point there actually mean in real terms? It's things like that I'm really curious about seeing going forward.
Yeah, and of course, like in Azure, you have ways to manage your costs. You have alerting, and you can set budgets and things like that. You need the same kind of thing with Copilot Studio, and you want it to be granular. Maybe there's one agent that's not so important. You want to set a budget on it. You don't want it to go above a certain threshold. Maybe you have a mission critical agent, and you actually want to set a much larger budget because if it goes down, that's a big problem. So it's those kinds of things you expect to see much more development in those areas, I would say.
Yeah.
Throughout this managed platform, this is all really cool with managing everything, but what does it actually look like from the journey of a maker? So this is looking more like this is IT professional development, but what does the maker's journey actually look like? And Microsoft actually went through that a bit at Ignite. So what we're looking at here is the green zone. So this is your maker. They've just gone into Power Platform through whichever method they've decided. What we see in front of us is Copilot Studio. It could be that they go through Power Apps or they go through Power Automate, and they can have this welcome message. And with this welcome message, you can create it with Markdown. So it's very simple to write it up. And then you can set some terms and conditions for it. You can link to documentation. You could link to your SharePoint hub for Power Platform or Copilot Studio. And it gives this lovely experience for a maker because you can tell them immediately, like, this is what's happening. You've just arrived here. If you want to get started, this is what you can do. If you want to know this, this is what you can do. It's a lovely experience then. And also with this, you can put makers into different groups. So you might have your newer makers, you give them this welcome message that is much more beginner friendly, less technical knowledge, information. But you might have another group, which is maybe your advanced makers, and they can see a different welcome message because they can be put through a different group, and you could give them more advanced information. So I think this is so cool, and I'm very excited about the way that this journey is beginning to work out. And just to add on to that, there are more controls coming through when it comes to environment groups as well, not just giving them the welcome message, but you can also set rules with environment groups.
Yeah, it's things that us as kind of governance experts or sitting within a COE been calling out for a long time, a lot of these features. It's really great to see them call through. One thing I'm very curious on seeing is that read and understood feature there. Is that going to record people who have actually ticked that box? Because that could be quite powerful in that if anything went wrong or that you can see who's ticked the box versus who hasn't. I'm very curious.
Well, you can't see who's ticked the box, I think. This is my understanding of it. But if you notice, you can't close it until you've ticked it. So basically, you can't start building until you've said, yeah, I've seen this and I'm closing it. But
Interesting.
I mean, the pro web developers amongst us will be looking at that thinking, well, I could actually just go into the live HTML and I could hide that dialogue and I could start building. Yeah, maybe, but it's going to pop up on every page. So come on, let's just do it.
That's again just small little feature enhancements that give a better quality of life and a better experience and all of this stuff. I do think it's, you know, it's so small when you really think about it. It's just a tick box, but actually it is a bit more than that. It does provide a nice quality of life update. And again, things that we've been asking for a while. So I'm again excited about that.
Yeah, because one of the problems that I do see with organizations is that their makers will claim ignorance on different things. Like, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to do that, or I didn't know that I was supposed to do that. But if you have these terms and conditions in there, they can't really claim ignorance because you've put it in front of them and you are asking them to read it. I know we don't like to read terms and conditions, and so many people just accept them. But I think the onus then is on the Power Platform admins or governance team to put simple terms and conditions that make it really clear, easy to digest, and then hopefully people are much more likely to read it before
Yeah,
they tick on it.
agreed. Yeah.
So the other thing that I want to talk about from Ignite, which is really exciting, is App Builder. And so there are a couple of different angles to this, I suppose. So what happened was earlier this year, we found out about something called code apps or code app, power apps, whatever they want to call it. I don't think they've properly given it a name yet. But essentially, this is code first building of power apps. So you would build your app in a JavaScript framework called React. And then once it's built, you can then deploy it through Power Apps. So it's hosted in Power Apps and it goes through the Power Apps governance controls. And this is another implementation of this concept. And this is where, if you have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you can quickly and easily generate a simple application. And this is a React app. But instead of you having to write the code, you're asking Microsoft to do it for you. Do you have any thoughts on this so far, Josh?
I do. I have loads of thoughts going through my head right now on this. It's really exciting. Also quite daunting. We've had Canvas apps and all of this stuff in Power Platform land for, since it was released. And now, M365 land are getting some of this goodness. It's nice to see. And you can kind of see where Microsoft are going with this UI through AI. And in my mind, this is the kind of new low code kind of side of things. It's no longer a case of needing to know formulas, needing to know to code. You are just telling the AI what to do and it's building it for you. What's great about this is it's not doing anything overly complex from what I can tell. It's just giving you a nice UI over your process, over your, your list, whatever it might be. It's giving you that nice, intuitive to use app. And it's also going to kind of help with things like Copilot, being able to tie in with that, using Copilot to interrogate this app. And I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of MCP server effectively, maybe that's going to allow Copilot to, read and write from these apps as well. I can see it all just becoming a one cohesive platform. So really cool, really excited about this.
Yeah, so from a governance perspective, when you generate these apps, they will attempt to create a SharePoint site and SharePoint lists in the background to then save the data in there. If they can't manage to create the site, then they're supposed to save the data in memory. So you close the session, you lose the data. I think, well, that's the way that we've been told that it's supposed to work, but there have been some quirks with it, and it's experimental basically at this stage. It's called Frontier, which is like their preview experimental area. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. The app itself is stored in Power Platform, but you won't be able to see it because it's in a hidden environment.
It's reminiscent of SharePoint formats, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Sounds a
very
bit of a
similar.
nightmare with governance, though. Ooh,
Well, potentially, yes, but I guess The thing is, you do have the data being stored in SharePoint. From the Microsoft 365 perspective, you've got access to what people are creating and storing within there. From the perspective of building the app and sharing the app, well, there are some things you can do. Like it does say easily share with coworkers. You would expect to be able to have some sharing controls in there. I'm not sure if those sharing controls do exist yet. It does say with security and governance baked in. One thing I do know is that you can control who's able to build things. So you could say it's completely blocked, of course, and no one can build any app builder apps. Or you could limit it to groups. So you might decide, well, let's pilot it with a group of people. They can use App Builder and then see how it goes and see what kind of governance we find around it and whether it's working for our organization. The other thing from a governance perspective is that, as you can see on the screen, it can use existing data and documents from Microsoft Graph, but that's it. This is not going to be communicating with external systems or anything like that. You can't use connectors with it. It's Graph and it's SharePoint, and that's your lot. So this is really based on personal productivity style apps, really simple, focused on one particular thing, and almost throwaway apps, I suppose, is a nice way to think about it.
That's interesting. It's going to be, as you said, kind of personal productivity kind of scope then. And the fact that they have limited or limit automation and connectors really makes it so that the scope is really small. You aren't going to be able to do a lot of this. It is an entry point. If you need to do something more, you're going to have to go to that next step, which is probably going to be Power Platform, right?
Yeah, that is going to be Power Platform, right?
There we go.
So there we go. Yeah, this is fresh from Ignite as well, of course. So this is kind of the path as to almost the complexity of where you would go to. So you're looking at a simple app that you're using or you're using with a couple of other people that's on a focus task. Doesn't matter if the data's in SharePoint, then yeah, App Builder seems to make sense for that kind of thing. Microsoft said it's very useful for information workers. When you need a bit more power, you need a bit more flexibility, then you're looking at Power Apps Studio. So previously, we're talking about Canvas apps and model-driven apps. Now we're talking about new experiences where you're generating apps using natural language that are vibe coded, which is a term that it seems like is universally hated, but we don't have a better term at the moment. Basically, an app that you create with natural language and you don't worry about the code behind it. And again, those are React apps. So it's basically like App Builder is the light version of the code first apps. And then, of course, you've got the pro code side, which is, as it says there, Power Apps Code Apps. So you can still do those and you can theoretically connect to all of the connectors within Power Platform using those. You can also build apps that live outside of your Microsoft tenant, as always, and can communicate with Dataverse via the Dataverse Web API and things like that. So there's a host of options, and hopefully we'll get more governance controls on all of this side of things. There's this other screen shot that I took, which helps to show things a little bit potentially, which is like the App Builder is prompt based. It's like simple apps. It's embedded in Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, which is also an important thing. So you're not going to be deploying these to different areas. This is in Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, and that's it. And we're not talking about having a development version, a test version, and production version. No, there's one version. These are really simple, should not be for anything important. If it's important, go the Power Apps route or beyond.
That's nice. I think as we start to see these features, you're starting to see this. I really like that infographic there around that kind of complementary tools. We're not trying to play one off against the other. It's just different tools for different use cases, depending on what it is you need. It's really nice. As you said, I'd like to see how the governance is going to work with all of this. There's a lot of moving parts. Maybe the Agent 365 comes into play a bit more, along with your Power Platform Admin Center. Maybe get some more features. So there's lots of considerations, but I'm really keen to see the governance side of this stuff.
Yeah, so from the governance side, one thing to bear in mind is that these App Builder apps will be visible in the Power Platform Admin Center in the inventory. So that's really nice, because I think in the past that might have been an oversight, but it seems like Microsoft are more on the ball with these kinds of things nowadays. So you'll at least get visibility of them. And Josh, you mentioned something earlier, which we didn't really highlight too much, which is the cloud flows aspect. So, like, as you said, in App Builder, you don't get any automation. And sometimes that might just be the deciding point for you. You want to build an app, but actually, I need this to send me emails. Therefore, App Builder just doesn't make sense for it. Let's build it in Power Apps. So, there we go.
I feel like App Builder's going to cover off the majority of scenarios that maybe what we'd term citizen developers have, because it's a lot of the time it's an app on a SharePoint list. App Builder's phenomenal for that. In my mind, that's going to take care of a lot of those use cases and get a lot of people up and running on it. Whereas Power Platform sits as that middle ground between no code and full pro code, where we've got a lot more enterprise opportunities within it. Again, it's a great kind of positioning for Microsoft, in my opinion.
There is one thing that does come to mind which scares me somewhat as someone involved in governance and admin. So, although it says that it's purpose built for complementary, not competing scenarios, I am certain that there'll be people who will go and build something with App Builder, realize that it doesn't have automation, and go, well, I'll just go to Power Automate. And when something's added to my SharePoint list, I'll trigger off of that. So then they've built a solution that isn't in a solution, and it's separated and it's very difficult to govern then. And no doubt that's going to happen. So you need to have good communication to your makers around this to say, look, this is when you use this is when you use this. If you're confused, contact us through our engaged community or whatever community you've got and find out what you should really do. Or maybe if you're lucky enough, you have a Copilot Studio agent with governance where your makers can talk to it and that can give them the answer.
Yeah, there's going to be maybe some shadow IT type issues with this, potentially. Maybe it's been thought about, but who knows? I'm curious. You're right. There's going to be some of these interesting use cases where makers love to try and skirt around governance and things. So I'm sure we'll see examples of that as we go. And, as diligent governance admins will be able to find ways to lock it down, no doubt. So let's see what happens here.
I hope so. The very last point from me is the bit on access to Microsoft 365 Graph and just what are those capabilities and what kind of damage can you do with that? Because we haven't investigated it yet. We don't know the full extent. I'm assuming that Microsoft have locked it down a lot, but still there's potential for risk there.
I think so too. Yeah, it's a really good point. Is there anything else you want to cover, or is that our major highlights, you think?
Those are our major highlights. Of course, there were more announcements. There's Agent 365 that can be gone into in a bit more detail. There's also the Vibe coding experience, which is the vibe.powerapps.com, which is basically Power Apps, but in a different format. And there's not really too much to worry about, I think, from a governance perspective that goes beyond Canvas apps, model-driven apps, and we've already got code-first apps anyway, so it fits within all of that. And it uses the Plan Designer concept as well. So again, we've had Plan Designer around for a while. So if you're not turning on Copilot for Power Apps, then you're not going to have any of that capability available in the first place. And if you have turned it on, you've already experienced Plan Designer and things like that. So yeah, it's just an addition to the family, and it, I believe, ultimately will be replacing Canvas apps and potentially replacing model-driven apps, but watch this space.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? What we'll do as well, because we've referenced quite a lot of information here, is we'll ensure that that's put in the video description so that anyone who watches this can check out individual videos or resources that we've referenced in this video.
Yep. And as we've promised in this recording, that there are other videos that we've got coming up that are really exciting. So please don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to get notified, of course, and like the video if you do like it, because that's going to help us with our reach. And if it helps us with our reach, then it enables us to create more videos and get more information about what videos will help you. So thanks so much.